Zvezda just keep on winning. Barcelona in crisis, and woe is Weems. All that and a look ahead to this week's game on Sweet 16. Tune in.
Hello and welcome to the 11th episode. Yes, we've had a special edition not that long ago, and now it's time for our next episode at Sweet 16, an open look on EuroLeague basketball. With me, Moshe from Team Scout, and as always, my great and amazing co-host, both Aris and Emmett. Hi Emmett, how are you?
Going great here in Dublin. It's been a hectic morning, despite me obviously looking like I'm still barely out of bed. Trust me, I wish I was. Unfortunately, I've been up to my gills, but got enough time for sure to make sure I gave you all my thoughts on what was definitely a curious few days in European basketball.
And hello from Athens, where we are still recovering for one more Greek clash between Olympiacos and Panathinaikos.
Well, it's another great episode ahead of us, talking about, as always, our basketball talk about games that we've had. Emmett, we've watched a lot of great games during the weekend, and also we had a lot of events following these games. What are we expecting today throughout this episode?
Well, obviously we're going to have to talk about Zvezda's ridiculously continued run we hit on in the intro. Also looking at sort of the FS Dashka situation, like, you know, sort of the cat and mouse for that final playoff spot as it currently looks, and whether anyone's still alive in the running. And of course, well, we thought we would have a Maccabi Light episode this week. Then Sunny Weems happened, so I guess we're going to have to go with a bit more Maccabi than we expected. And well, Moshe, I guess it just leaves us with one thing to start off with.
Yeah, but before that, let's start with the 4-minute warning. Or is it?
4 minutes to get through all the action that just happened in EuroLeague. It's the 4-minute warning. And as ever, the 4-minute warning isn't quite 4 minutes, but, you know, it's that time of season where there's too much to talk about, folks. So maybe let's call it the 4x4 minute warning in this case.
We're going to start off with another great display made by Crvena Zvezda. Aris, they played versus Panathinaikos. How did you feel this game?
There's no secret that Zvezda at this point is the hottest team in the league. There's no denying that the Serbs, based on their local talent and local coach Dejan Radonic, that's their obvious secret. The recipe of success is very well known for all of Serbian basketball, not only for Zvezda. We have seen it in the past also with Partizan, and Zvezda is a proud heir of this tradition, even if those two teams are bitter rivals. We have seen Zvezda building something admirable based on the abilities of the players and a very low budget roster. Probably Zvezda is the blueprint for things to come. If a team enters EuroLeague and doesn't have the wallet of the big clubs, Zvezda is the recipe that they should follow for success, and that was proven once more. I believe that they have a pretty good chance for their run to continue, and with that being saying, 7-0 run is the best this year in EuroLeague. Not even CSKA Moscow and Real Madrid had such a run. They both have a 6-0 so far, and that makes the feat of Zvezda even more admirable.
Yeah, for me this game was simply a case of Zvezda proving that they are really just one of the smartest teams in EuroLeague. Above all else, organization coming out on top once again. And, well, right now, I think, you know, there's like almost, like, you know, a crisis in Belgrade if it turns out that I'm remotely planning on picking Zvezda to win a game. So we'll see more about that later in this episode, whether or not I'm going to upset people who are Red Star fans. But I suppose one group of fans who, well, probably, you know, well, they aren't the most numerous, but they were definitely amongst the most upset this week, the Rushafaka Dos, because they had a chance to really put some breathing room between them and the outside contenders for the playoffs, and they did not. First came Efes, then, first came the loss to Efes, then came Zalgiris, and another loss. Basically, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Moshe, you gotta, if you're Dashka, you've got to really consider this to be one of your least effective weeks of the season, not just because of the record, but because of when it came, like what it meant for the standings.
Oh, totally. You know, we should look at this game, at both games, from a few point of views. The first one, I think, is regarding the future of this of Dachka, the future of Dachka, since Well, let's be honest about it. The team is right now, one of their best chance maybe at staying at the EuroLeague is probably through winning the competition. And as much as it is hard, just to get a team going at the first time running with a lot of new guys, especially like Wanamaker that just came with great other additions as well that we will spare you guys since we all know who came and who left this team. But still with their fights of what they want to achieve this season and with the money that they've put in, this is a major blow, especially the first loss to FS. Since right now Darussafaka are not, they haven't managed to get a substantial advantage in terms of, number of games. They have won more than the teams beneath them. They were the last spot that leads the playoffs, which means that in a head-to-head battle with FS right now, they are out. Meaning, should them and FS finish the regular season with the same, number of wins and losses, Darussafaka are out. No playoffs for Coach Blad, no playoffs for pretty much every other player in that team, and that means that we're gonna see Dachka keeping on next season with the same roster. It's gonna be much more interesting right now, this situation. And if it's not enough, the same team that managed to create some damage in Turkey not that long ago comes back again and just they control the game. And I'm talking obviously about Žalgiris. They controlled the game. The score maybe have ended with only 3 points difference, I think, but still, Žalgiris knew what they did and how they did it. And I like saying about teams. I like talking about teams that know what they do and how they are achieving their goals. But as it turns out, right now, Darussafaka are not in a good place. And we're talking, present-wise, if they want to make it to the playoffs, because right now they have lost to Žalgiris, they have lost to Anadolu Efes. And that means that right now there's only one game between Efes and Dachka, meaning that should Efes win, Dachka lose, that's it. They are not, they are not self-dependent right now. That's it. I mean, right now it cannot get worse than what it is right now. And who thought that they would get to that point after this amazing run they had at the beginning of the regular season?
Yeah, like you just look at the standings, and like last week, Dachka had a chance, like a really big chance to make it a 3-game gap between them in 8th and anyone in 9th. No matter who got there, Dachka were in position to create that sort of breathing room. The loss to FS is one thing, we've been over that. And you go to FS as Dachka, you probably figure the likelihood is you will lose, so you give them that. But Žalgiris, that was the big one, because, yeah, like we've spoken highly of Saras as a coach before in this podcast. Like, everybody knows that we love Žalgiris as an organization because the fans are great. And this is a team, though, which had overperformed at points in the season. Obviously, the famous win over Sheshka, which we were all absolutely, in titters of laughter at in a good way, because, just when we, sold out in Žalgiris, oh, now they're coming out and they're just going to beat Sheshka, because of course they are. So, yeah, they've had their moments. But it's still a game, and this is David Blatt, that you've got to win. You've got to get this W. There's no ifs, buts, maybes. And they just plain didn't. They didn't take care of business, and that's why they are, where they are. Only 1 game up on 9th with the wrong side of the tiebreaker on their side. And they basically did the opposite of what Olympiacos did, which was they did not take care of business. Olympiacos finally get that Bamberg jinx off their back. They finally just, actually went to a game against Broza, and there was no, there were some moments of tension, but Oli did what Oli had to do. I think that's fair to say, Moshe.
They sure did, and, the final score simply is in their favor. And I know that it was some sort of an unjinx for Olympiacos, but again, we see that Bamberg, and it's something that is, I think, connected to Dachka, they are falling to their bad habits once again. I mean, they had a very close game versus Madrid. They almost had them, and then in the last possession, Sergio Yui goes and attack Nico Zizis, and we all know how it ends. Your human cheat code pretty much pressed whatever, and he really got to tell us how the hell does he do that? How does he do that? Ending games in a remarkable way, in a remarkable manner, but the game after, we see Bamberg again coming to an arena which they won previously, like last year. And, you know, it's sad. With Dachka, why is it so related? Because I would have expected from David Blatt's teams, you know, we can say that in his favor, that up until I think that game we just talked about of FS beating Dachka, you know, his teams with their backs against the wall, they managed to pull off the win. They managed to get a job done. Not this time. And I think it says a lot both, I think, maybe about Bamberg in their situation versus Olympiacos, where a win was a necessity, and they simply didn't. You know, they simply didn't get a win. Aris, what's your thoughts with Bamberg, you know, getting their unjinx on, losing to Olympiacos at CEF?
For Olympiacos, it was a rebound game after losing to Panathinaikos, so the situation with Bros Bamberg was a misfortune for the Germans. Add to that also the fact that Olympiacos was embarrassed at Milano, so they have to react. That's the truth of the situation. Olympiacos was obliged to get this win, and Olympiacos is also a team that is very adept to pressure. When they feel that they have their back against the wall, they always react, and this was pretty much the story. And having said that, Bruce Basket once more knew what they do. They are a very well coached team, they are very balanced, and they are pretty smart. I believe that the record doesn't reflect the quality of the team that Andrea Trinchieri has built, but on the road against Olympiacos it was not easy to prevail. The issue now for Olympiacos is that all those injuries are piling up. The Reds are going to Kazan without Vasilis Panoulis and without Patrick Young, and probably without also Matt Lojeski, so they have to, the rest of the roster has to step up really well. They have to react really well in order to keep the Reds on the winning path.
And also a thorough look back at what has happened in EuroLeague this past week. Now we're going to look at some of the off-court issues as well as some of the, well, mixture of problems for teams in the natural spot to do it, the Coach's Playbook. The Coach's Playbook, where we look at the strategies that worked and that need to work in the coming weeks in EuroLeague. So, Moshe, I mean, there's only one story we can really lead off with this week, and that is Sonny Weems. Well, let's try and cover this without getting into any defamatory trouble with either Sonny or Maccabi. So we're going to look at the implications of what's going to happen next. Moshe, it doesn't really look good for Maccabi here, does it?
I mean, you know, it's kind of funny because we would have expected to talk about the atrocious game we saw in Tel Aviv when they played Kazan. That was not an easy game to watch, and everyone admitted it, but the events followed that game were, well, let's just say that they made the game all that much better, pretty much, because the experience that happened afterwards was simply the worst possible. And I'll explain. In terms of both the player and Maccabi, looking at, you know, the way this entire thing pretty much was portrayed, the entire incident was developed, was reported. Both sides, let's just say, just got themselves in a lose-lose situation, I think. Maccabi mostly, since in a way they could get blacklisted, in a way that players would simply not be that eager as they were before coming to Tel Aviv, which has been in some ways some sort of a heaven for a lot of foreign guys, simply because it's a great place to play, it's a great place to live. And I can kind of tell you about a story that we had in the Final Four in Madrid. I had a meeting with a friend of mine, and, you know, he said, you know, I had a chance to talk to a basketball agent, and I asked him, you know, what are your top-rated cities for players to want to come play for? And he said, you know, well, obviously the number one teams would be probably CSKA and Madrid. Madrid has a great city. Both teams, by the way, great money, so it's kind of goes without saying. And then you have probably Barcelona, then Maccabi, then the Greek teams. which was kind of, it's understandable. There's a lot of sense in that ranking, which is obviously unofficial or something, but still, it made a lot of sense. And now with the way everything happened, I wouldn't be surprised if players would think twice or three times about coming to Tel Aviv. It's going to make, let's just say that it's going to make the job of those responsible of signing players be a whole lot harder than what it was so far. It's not going to be because of the money, because the money is not an issue there. But I do think that this entire incident is simply the worst. And now we know that, it's been reported that Barcelona have their sights set on Sonny, who I can now say had some interest from NBA teams. Not something that was publicly known, not something that was publicly said, but, a few teams were seeing, were checking under the radar what happened because they knew that Maccabi were not that pleased with Sonny. They thought that maybe they should release him from the team prior to this entire incident happening.
Yeah, and just to chime in on my thoughts, whatever about the rights and wrongs in this, because I'm not going to go down defamatory routes, because I'm, well, too poor to really risk being libeled, although they would say being done for defamation. Although, to be honest, if you're too poor to be done for it, probably not worth suing me, just saying. But staying ethical all the same, the real issue here is optics, and the optics just don't really work here for Maccabi, because like one of the things they had most touched on it is an attractive place to play as a player. Like Tel Aviv is a lovely city, they're known as paying on time, it's a NBA style arena. There's a lot of, stuff if you're an international player to like about going to Maccabi essentially. Then you look at the season so far and it's like, cluster, what have you, in terms of everything on the court. And, they're on their third coach of the season. Everybody's kind of assuming he won't be their coach at the latest as soon as this season ends. So that'll be 4 coaches in a year realistically. And you kind of look at it and kind of going, this isn't you add on the Weems thing and how the Weems thing has played out. If I'm a player and I got a choice between Maccabi and, well, largely any other team offering the same money, and I know that other team is a bit more organized in the front office, even if the city doesn't have the attraction, even if the team doesn't have the history, even if, well, pretty much everything, you'd assume would be a huge plus for Maccabi, isn't there for that opponent. Like, the negatives for Maccabi right now are very, very worrying, and if I'm Maccabi, I need to address this so badly. Aris, I'd love to get your thoughts.
The situation with Sonny Weems is pretty unfortunate, and I believe that maybe we are not really aware of the full story so far. Of course, you can't debate with an organization like WEDA, but the take of the player and what really happened with him trying to give a sample 8 times, as he stated, and all those apples not getting admissible, for sure turns some head. It's one more ugly incident in an ugly season for Maccabi, and now they have to find maybe another small forward in order to fill up their roster. Losing Zirbes maybe was an addition by letting someone go who was clearly in a bad situation, but without Weems, I don't know if they have at this point the talent to fill this gap and continue playing without any problem.
The past is in the past. What's done is done. It's time to look forward. Here's our Games of the Week.
Well, it may not be the game of the week, but it's the game we have to definitely start off talking about, mainly because of our hilarious record, especially mine, when it comes to picking Crvena Zvezda games. And, well, this week it's Efes, a team who ostensibly, in the record books and everything else, are not as good as Zvezda. So we should be picking Zvezda to win this. We will get my thoughts on this in a moment, where I am going to be honest with my pick here, because it's the thing. I've been getting it wrong while going with my honest thoughts. Moshe, I'm just going to pan to you first, though. Zvezda Efes, what should we expect from this game?
Well, Emmett, this is going to be a great game, and we want to watch it simply because it has a direct effect on what it is that's going on for the last playoff spot. with Anadolu Efes. But before that, first of all, Zvezda are coming to this game with a 7-game winning streak, which during which they've beat great teams such as obviously Panathinaikos, Baskonia, Maccabi Tel Aviv, Fenerbahce, Žalgiris, and CSKA and Madrid. It all started in the when they beat Madrid at home, 82-70, and ever since they're on a roll. Now, every streak must come to an end, and I'm assuming that it will, because it will do good to Zvezda. Just before you're approaching the last part of the season, it takes down the pressure, and also, you cannot keep up doing this throughout all the games that are left now, which is kind of nice, saying that Zvezda are playing great basketball. They are playing amazing. They deserve to be where they are, and they might surprise us, ending the regular season with a home court advantage. Who knows? This, like we said, like every team that's coming to play in Belgrade, they got all the Zvezda fans on their backs. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy for Anadolu, but Perasovic, a Jugoplastica X in a way. He understands those kind of things. And just like other great coaches, Perasovic knows his job. In a way, his team had to do some changes during the season. And it looks like the team is playing better and better, even though they lost to CSKA. It wasn't until, they kind of gave him a real fight. And, I really can't wait to see this game. We've been watching, you and me, and obviously Aris as well. Everyone was following what Zvezda did this season, and it's remarkable. No one wants this amazing journey to end, but just, to continue and get as good as possible.
Yeah, and well, as the shadows come across my face, it's always a sign that, I'm about to give some bad news to Belgrade with the way the light's shining into this room, because after getting so many picks against you wrong, the last thing you want to do is what I'm about to say next, which is Zvezda win. I just think they got too much for Efes. I don't think Efes are playing well enough. Yes, they gave CSKA a good run for their money, no question, but week to week, game to game, I just don't feel I can trust Efes. They aren't playing the same in EuroLeague in terms of consistency the way they are in the BSL. And this is Zvezda. I can't even bet against them now. I think I've forgotten who it was I saw online. It was one of the EuroLeague Adventures guys said they're coming to your school and robbing your lunch money or something like that. This is like a Final Four contender now, which is I'm giggling because, well, I had them pitched as bottom 3, I think it was, at the start of the season. So yep, shows that I can get wrong at times. So yeah, Zvezda to win, and well, me to get all the hate mail from Belgrade if it turns out that jinxes them and they lose. I suppose the other game we've got to talk about this week, and we're going to patch to Aris here on this one. Fenerbahce plays CSKA again. Oh, Aris, what's going to happen?
The game between Fenerbahce and CSKA is going to be a barn burner. I expect a real close game, and this is also a game of fate. Fenerbahce and the fans of the club believe that they should have won last year the EuroLeague title in the final against the Russians, and so this is a game that is going to be also a revenge story, at least for the host side. And also it's a must-win situation for Fenerbahce, because they don't have the luxury at this point to not fight in any home game. So I expect that a really hard-fought game, and I will not be surprised by other result. And of course, we still have the question mark on the situation of Milos Teodosic. If he remains absent in such a game, that will be a huge issue for CSKA Moscow against an opponent with such quality. And of course, it's one more duel between the teacher and the master, between Zeljko Obradovic and Dimitris Stoudis.
For me, this game is all about prestige. Last time these two teams met, it was pretty much a one bad decision that sent the game to overtime, and from that moment on, there was like only one team to play on the court. And Fener's, with all honesty, Fener just were the better team in the overtime. But let's just look at the last two games. Emmett, we've been talking, all three of us, about how Fener still is not that impressive. They win, they get a job done, that's true. But the way they get the win, something is just not right over there. The good news is at least they are getting back guys like Gigi Datome, and they are getting maybe Anthony Bennett into the rhythm after we saw him play, putting up 16 points, I think, in the domestic league. The thing is, right now, CSKA are coming, probably, they were always a team that were playing, I think, for pride in a way. They cannot, see themselves finishing in a spot which is less than first of the regular season. It sends a message when the reigning champs are not able to finish the regular season in the first place.
Yeah, I'm expecting a close enough one here. Fener have definitely got the habit of winning back, which is useful. And there are parts of their games where we see what they're capable of, but the win over Panathinaikos was far more complete than either of last week's wins. It's pretty obvious. They had to work a bit too hard in both those games to get the W's. Like the Gala game in particular was not exactly aesthetically pleasing, shall we say, in terms of performance by Fener. So, it's a big ask for them to get the W over CSKA this week. I'm not going with them. I'm going with CSKA. The other game, of course, to keep an eye on when it comes to big teams in top four contention, Real Madrid and Baskonia. Baskonia beat Barcelona last week in EuroLeague, which has put Barcelona in trouble. Lost to Barcelona and ACB at the weekend, which isn't a huge shock because ACB is secondary for Baskonia. It's quite clear at the moment. And now have Real Madrid in a game which they're definitely going to go in pretty confident. I'm going to actually go with Baskonia to get the W here. But Moshe, give us your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, we're totally expecting an amazing atmosphere as always from Baskonia. They were kind of falling behind in recent weeks, but managed to find their to get their stride back versus Barcelona, who are now in the market again for another point guard probably, and they are closely monitoring what is going to happen eventually with Sonny Weems, as it was reported that they want him as well. The type of the player that they are kind of missing in a way. But back to our game with Madrid, Baskonia. I'm also going with Baskonia because they still have, their ambitions to get a home court advantage, I'm assuming, and they want to secure their spot in the playoffs as well. And, well, simply for the fact that should they win and should Fener lose versus CSKA, it's going to open up an internal standings within that, and it's going to be fabulous, with Baskonia having the lead over Fener, especially for the goal difference that I highly doubt that Fener are going to manage to retaliate in the weeks to come when they're going to, play in Istanbul versus Baskonia. But again, it's going to be the Madrid game with Baskonia. It's going to be great, high tempo. I'm actually hoping for a high score. I think it's going to go for a high score. And as I try to predict, and you know what that means, that's going to happen eventually. It's been a great show. Again, thank you, Emmett. Thank you, Aris. You can always find me at, Moses B1, Team Scout, and, the web, teamscout.net, Facebook page, Team Scout. Emmett, Aris, guys, where can they find you?
Well, as always, you can find me, ballineurope.com, at BIE_basketball on Twitter, and facebook.com/ballineurope.
That's it also from me from Athens, and you can find me as usual on Facebook, on Twitter with my handler Bakas. And of course at EuroHoops, where some new and exciting stuff are coming. Just check our website at EuroHoops.net and you will get the full picture.
And yes, that's all we have for you guys. Again, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe. As we said always, both on EuroHoops TV on YouTube, also on SoundCloud, Team Scout, and well, we're also available on iTunes. So till next time.
Sweet 16, an open look on
EuroLeague basketball, covering 16
EuroLeague teams.
Gonna be sweet. Sweet 16.